Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast by Closers.io where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Karen Bedney, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind successful startups, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future expansion. Today, we're thrilled to have Roger Kitchen Jr., the founder of Power Mental Performance, joining us. Roger is a mental skills coach who helps athletes, teams, and high performing professionals excel under pressure. With clients ranging from NCAA teams to organizations like the Army and NASA, Roger will be sharing his founding story and giving us a glimpse into his plans for growing Power Mental Performance. So let's jump right in, Roger. Welcome to Founders Future.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Let's do this. I'm excited. Happy to dig in anywhere you want to go.
Amazing. All right. I'm super excited to have you here too. For our listeners, I like to bring us back all the way from the start. So take us back to the beginning. What specific challenges in the mental performance space inspired you to start Power Mental Performance?
So it's interesting. I fell into this by accident. I wasn't pursuing mental performance. Psychology wasn't even in my background, but I was working at NASA, was training high-performing teams at Marshall Space Flight Center. And my government client comes in one day and he says, "Hey, we hired a sports psychologist and he's going to help us come in and train high-performing teams and train leaders." And I was like, "That sounds really cool." I don't know what sports psychology really is, but it sounds like it should be something like really interesting. So lo and behold, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Matt Park shows up, and he and I just sat down, office very close to each other, and just started unpacking what was sports psychology, how you use it in the business world. He was a golfer by trade in college, and my background was in powerlifting. So most people aren't familiar with that. It's competitive squat, bench, and deadlift. And I was getting back into it as a master, an older guy. And he just kind of walked me through what it was like to mentally prepare for a competition. I hadn't done it since college. There was this big 24-year break, and I was successful at that particular competition. And I just said to myself, every athlete needs this. And so it really was birthed out of my work, training high performing teams, training leaders for the government. And then once I experienced it myself, I was like, I've got to take this to teams and athletes. And that's really how the journey started. So I always joke that I was my first client because what he taught me, I used on me. And then I developed my own program called Do Hard. Now I take it to NCAA teams, a lot of different sports, a lot of high schools, and deliver the program to them, help them perform under pressure, help them overcome adversity, help them increase their self-confidence, improve their focus, and then really learn how to adapt in stressful situations. So it really went back to that conversation in that small office working at NASA.
Amazing. Funny how that works. The
Yeah,
idea of what you're going to do for your life, and then one conversation that you have completely diverts things, and you're like, whoa, I actually think I want to do this.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, amazing. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of what you're doing now. So,
Yeah.
can you walk us through how Power Mental Performance generates revenue today? For example, what is the structure of your one-on-one coaching, team coaching, and start today plan?
Yeah, so you really laid it out. So the bulk of my program is around team coaching. Coaches will hire me to come in and work with various teams. And so a lot of times I am like an extended part of their staff. So I'll be at practices, I'll be at games, I'll come in and do sessions in between games to work with them. Doesn't that always opens up opportunity then to work one-on-one with clients, so one-on-one athletes. So a lot of the revenue is generated through those team sessions. And then my second bucket, quote unquote, of revenue is doing one-on-one coaching because a lot of coaches inherently have a couple people on the team, couple athletes that really they're struggling, whether it's with confidence or focus, quote unquote, performing under pressure. And so really those are the two main. And then every once in a while, I'll take it into the business world. So that's really my third stream, which is that I'll work with corporations and come in and train like leadership teams and take the sports psychology in athletics and then bring it into the performance arena within business. And so that's really the three ways that I generate the revenue that I do.
Amazing. Okay, very in depth. And when it comes to working with these clients, whether it's athletes, teams, or organizations, which channels have been most effective for you within finding them?
So in the channels has been the teamwork. And a lot of that has been really what I call organic growth, which was I started very small and it really started word of mouth. A quick story, which was when I figured out I wanted to do this, I'm like, how do I even get started? Dr. Matt Park was a great mentor, and he's like, let's just cold call all the big high schools. So I'm in Alabama for those that listen. High school sports in Alabama are different than any other part of the country. You have big 7A high schools that really look like small colleges. It's pretty amazing that environment. So we just cold called a bunch of big high schools in North Alabama and it was like crickets. Like nobody came back, but one school did. And so one school came back and said, "Hey, come meet with us." So I met with the AD and the principal, and they said, "We like what you're going to do. We like what your services, what you want to provide." And that really just opened the door to go in and start working with those coaches. My very first client was swimming and diving. If you put me in a pool right now, Karen, I'd drown. So it was just ironic that I started with swimming and diving. But then it was just like one team after another just heard about it. The organic growth, the word of mouth just spread and just slowly started getting bigger. And then as coaches move around, they have a tendency to say, "Hey, I want to bring you with me," which has happened numerous times where an assistant coach will become a head coach and they want to bring you, or a head coach will switch positions. And then just networking and meeting other coaches and having people refer you really just helped grow the business. So it really was organic growth and referrals and a couple of coaches willing to put some faith in me to help them with their teams.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. So we've got organic growth and then, yeah, networking and word of
Hmm.
mouth. And okay. Have you thought about any other ways to do lead generation, whether that's going in and even like ads online? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I dabbled with doing some Facebook marketing, Instagram, like kind of the normal social media buckets that people go through. And it
Mhm.
really didn't seem to generate what I needed. And I worked with the business coach because as Power Mental Performance was growing, I wanted to make sure I was growing at the right pace and be able to handle additional growth that could be coming in the next couple years. So I really sat down over the last 6 months with the business coach and really mapped out. Her name's Amanda Schaefer, great business coach in the sports niche, but she helped me identify what we call it a bridge. She's, "Raj, you've got all these ideas of what you want to do. We got to really come back to one." And it ended up being teams, but knowing that would generate one-on-one clients and maybe some team building with corporations, but one niche, one bridge. And then we dabbled with the social media advertising. And I tell you, I may be a little bit different than some of your other clients in that area, but I really found that the networking is really where I get quote unquote the biggest bang for the buck
Yeah.
just because I've been doing it. I'm in year 8. So typically with these types of coaching practices, they don't last long. So by the grace of God, I'm still around and I'm still networking and still reaching out, picking up new teams. Coaches are really good referring. So it seems like that's been my best way to pick up new clients and really generate more leads. And typically the coaches are really good about referring me out. So like I think I'm in a little bit of a different place than maybe some of your normal clients, but
Yeah.
for me that's been think about a restaurant that just blows up and you never heard of them before and they're like people just tell people. So
Yeah.
that's how we get people to come into the
Yeah.
restaurant. So
You
that's
must
kind of
do
my
good
unique
work.
story.
Yeah. Yeah, you must do good work if that's working for you. That's amazing. I want to get into the customer journey. And
Yeah.
so let's say I'm coming in, I need your help. What does that look like from initial outreach to signing up a new client, whether it's an athlete or a team?
So we'll start with the team. Not uncommon story recent. I had a very large high school volleyball team reach out to me. And when the coach contacted me, again, it was a referral that I didn't know. "Hey, I talked to my athletic director. I was sharing with him about just some challenges I'm having within the team. He heard about you and connected me with you." And so when I sat down with her, I'm like, "What's really the challenges you're facing?" So it's really trying to get to the root cause of some of their problems
Mhm.
within that environment. And so that's really where I get into what I call a needs assessment, which is what is the need? What are the challenges? What are the problems you're facing? And sometimes it's a lot around team culture, interestingly enough. But it really is spending a lot of time just listening, asking good questions. I think a word we don't use enough is empathy. So when you hear these coaches really just open up and lay their issues on the table with you, like having a lot of empathy for them because they're under a lot of pressure to perform even at a big high school, but definitely within college. Colleges demand success pretty quickly. And so it's really just sitting with an empathetic position, asking good questions, doing less talking, and really just learning what that need is. And then basically, once you sit down, maybe it may take a couple meetings to really understand what the root cause is of some of their issues. And then for me, then I put together a customized plan around different mental skills concepts, tools, and techniques that would address one, two, maybe even three issues that could be impacting that particular team. And so then from there, draw up a contract. They sign it, get it approved from whoever needs to approve it within the organization, and then they pay. And then really we hit the ground running with their quote unquote organizational improvement plan, for lack of better words. Now, it's really not that much different from a one-on-one client, which was typically it's a referral. Somebody heard about me, they want me to work with that athlete. I'll have that athlete I'll do an intake with them. So they fill out a form for me, in-depth questionnaire that helps me really understand what their challenges are. And then I'll sit down with them. If they're local to where I live, it could be in person, but I do a lot of work virtually. So I'm talking with you, Karen. Karen, you play any sports in your background at all?
I played lacrosse and fast pitch growing
Okay.
up.
Let's say you're struggling with pitching, whatever that
I
may
was
be.
at one point, I was the pitcher.
Okay.
That
So
resonates.
good. That resonates, right? You get in your head, you start walking a few players, a few batters, makes defense makes some errors. Game just gets away from you. Now, how do you respond? So it really would be sitting down with Karen, the pitcher, and understanding what's going on, what's the issue, what's going through your mind, how are you man, what are the emotions and feelings that you're feeling in those
Yeah,
pressure moments.
yeah. I
And
probably
so,
could have used that back in the day because I ended up quitting after one bad season. So I could have used you. That would have been great.
yeah. So it's good that you have that context because then we would sit down and really unpack all this and really drill in. At the end of the day, we're dealing with emotions and feelings and how somebody physiologically and psychologically responds to that pressure.
Yeah.
And then again, it would be customizing a plan, having them sign a contract. They make the payment, and then we get into the coaching sessions. And with teams and individuals, depending on the amount of needs, like it could be a couple sessions, it could
Hmm.
be two, three, maybe four. I've had as many as 13 with a particular team because the coach really wanted me integrated with the team across an entire season. And so, like, each of those customized packages looks different in terms of the level of involvement that they want. And so,
Okay.
same thing with an athlete.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And Roger, are you the one that's handling all of this when it comes to the sales side, the meetings, whether they're in person or online, or do you have somebody else helping you out with this?
Basically, it's just me, one man show right now,
Yeah.
and it's working at the moment. As
Yeah.
I continue to grow, probably the two positions that I think if I had a blank check right now to bring on would be somebody to do like some business development for me to
Mhm.
go out and find those leads. And then I write a ton of curriculum. So it'd be nice to have an instructional designer to be able to push a lot of my curriculum to in order for them to expand it, build it out, and really clean it up, make it look nice.
Yeah.
But there's people that I've contracted with to do things for me,
Mhm.
business coach and some other services over the years that were just part of the growth.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And that was going to be one of my next questions for our listeners is if you could solve one thing today that would unlock growth for you, what would it be? And so it sounds like those two things are the biggest right now.
Yeah, because it
Unless
would
you
be
can think
nice to
of,
be able to turn that over to somebody and let them run,
yeah.
especially on the business development side to
Mhm.
generate the leads.
Yeah.
Right now, it's me
Hmm.
reaching out
Yeah.
to coaches. And like I said, I'm very blessed. A lot of the coaches are good to make referrals. A lot of coaches are good to have me come back and maintain what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Let's get into the vision and growth.
Sure.
Roger, what are your top priorities for growing Power Mental Performance, say over the next like 6 to 12 months?
So I would say the number one priority is again continuing to build the number of coaches and teams I work with. And if you're not building and replacing, then you're just definitely going to shrink. So it's always maintaining the client base that you have and adding on additional teams and coaches. I would say the other area is getting more into Division I sports. I've seemed to niche down into basketball, which really wasn't intentional, but a lot of the referrals I got aligned me into basketball, which is
Mhm.
funny because as a power lifter, we don't shoot. So it's not in my background, but it's just interesting where it just clicks in my mind working with the different basketball teams. Worked with Columbia University this year, had an opportunity to work with them. One of my D3 clients was national runner-up last year, went to the Sweet 16 this year. So it's really getting into those programs more in the Division I space and then really being strategic to work with more of those high-performing teams. So
Yeah.
really I think those are the two big things that I really want to double down on. I think past that, then I'm spreading myself too thin and I'll be good at some things, but not great at a few. So I'd rather be great at those two things versus good over 3 to 4 things.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And Roger, are you aiming for any specific revenue or client acquisition targets? And
Uh,
what are the things that you really see for key drivers for hitting those goals?
yeah, I would say probably if I have a 10 to 20% growth in terms of teams and coaches from one year to the next, that's a good business goal for me. Inherently, that'll drive the revenue probably about the same in terms of dollars.
Yeah.
And so that would be the big thing for me is just to continue to have those goals 10 to 20% every year. And I'll tell you this, the other thing that I did that my business coach helped me with was like my pricing, which was I really found out, and I think maybe some entrepreneurs fall into this trap is they weren't charging enough. And it really is, and I think some entrepreneurs struggle there because they maybe out of a sense of humility or fill in the blank. It's they don't see the value that they do bring. And so when I sat down with this coach, she really helped me with my pricing structure. And you are undervaluing yourself and you need to be charging more, not because you're greedy, Roger, but because it's the value that you bring to those teams and the results that you're getting and the impact you're having on those programs. I think that's a common trap for a lot of entrepreneurs starting out. They're afraid. And
Mhm.
again, it's not based in greed, it's just the value that you bring to your target audience or your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I talk to entrepreneurs just like yourself every single day, and it's hard to charge more. It's a mental thing, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to know the value of what you're giving, and it can be hard because you're like, I want everybody to be able to get to do this. And it's not everybody is for you, right? And the
Yeah.
right people are going to come to you and they're going to see the value no matter if you up the price. So
Would
I,
you mind me sharing a quick story around that?
yeah, go for it.
So a friend of mine is a business consultant, and he shared a story with me, and it was a couple years ago. A best friend of his was going into Coca-Cola in Atlanta to pitch the board on a consulting contract. And his friend told one of the board members who was a friend told him, said, "Don't come in here with a low price." And he's, what are you talking about? He's like, "Don't come in low." He's because if you come in low, they're going to think you don't know you're good at your job, and you're
Mm,
not going to know it was like a devaluing. They're going to perceive you not to be good at what you do. So and so the consultant on the fly changed the numbers in the contract and changed the presentation and almost, I think he doubled it. Went in,
wow.
pitched the board, got done. They were like, okay, when can you start? It was just another day at the office. And so I think that's just a good lesson for all of us that we have more value than we realize when we are working with whether it's business, athletics, or fill in the blank industry. At some point, you really do have to recognize the value that you do bring and the impact that you do have. And again, I go back, my vision for Power Mental Performance is that every athlete and team I work with is mentally and emotionally well. End of the day. And then my mission is I provide those tools and techniques day in, day out to help those teams and athletes perform under pressure and meet their goals. So I think when you get specific on your vision, you get specific on your mission, it keeps it intrinsic and it's not about the dollar. My job is to change lives, and there also is a value to that. And so I think entrepreneurs need to understand, get crystal clear on your vision, your mission, things we're talking about. What are your goals? How are you going to grow the business? What's the plan going to be? And where do you still need to go? and then let the rest of it take care of itself.
Absolutely. That was powerful. That was powerful. I love that. To wrap up, I want to ask you one more question, and this is
Sure.
specifically for our listeners. What advice would you give to new entrepreneurs starting a business in the mental performance or coaching space?
I just keep showing up every day. And it's cliche. Like we hear entrepreneurs say this all the time. You watch Shark Tank and you watch all these other shows, you read these books, you listen to podcasts. I think at the end of the day, it's just keep grinding. If you really believe in yourself and you really believe in the service that you're providing, just keep grinding, control what you can control. There's a lot of times like it's easy to focus on things outside of my control within power mental performance and within this space. But when you get really specific on controlling what you can control, believe in what you do, everything will just take care of itself. And understanding why you do what you do, having a solid vision, which is your why, having a solid mission, which you're going to do day in, day out. And then honestly, a solid business plan. Because like at the end of the day, if it's you don't have a solid business plan, you've got a hobby. And you're not going to do anybody any good having a hobby. You're not going to change lives. Back to my point, just grind it out day in, day out, persevere. I've never seen anybody that's been willing to persevere through hard things, willing to endure, not catch the reward on the other side. One of my favorite basketball coaches said, on the other side of hard is everything that you want. And so that's just my encouragement to entrepreneurs. On the other side of hard, when it may be dark, doesn't look like it's going to work out, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Many times it is just slow and steady wins the race. And if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, it will take care of itself.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Roger. That does wrap up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. I want to thank Roger Kitchen Jr. for sharing his incredible journey and insights with us today. And to learn more about Roger and his work helping athletes and teams perform under pressure, visit Power Mental Performance. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their sales and marketing efforts through world-class systems and playbooks. Until then, keep climbing, and we will see you on the next one.